Okay, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I think today we have attendees from all over the world, but of course primarily from APAC region. My name is Leo. I'm the head of Career Services, Alumni and Corporate Relations from ESSEC Business School. So today, thank you for joining us in this MBA Experience Week. It's a series of webinars during these 3 days. So for today, right, we are going to talk about getting the most out of MBA, EMBA career services. So maybe before I begin, let me introduce our two guest speakers here, and both of them are our ESSEC alumni. Maybe we do a short introduction first. James.
Thanks, Leo. Hi, good morning, good evening, everyone. My name is James, and I am an EMBA class of 2020-2021 cohort participant, and I've just finished my 2 residencies, and happy to be here and talk about career services.
Thank you, James. Now, next we have Jeff. Jeff, over to you.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I was part of the 2018-2019 cohort for the Global MBA, and I am currently based here in Singapore as a strategist for an agency called Media Monks.
Thank you, Jeff. Right. So, of course, I hope that the attendees here, you would have some knowledge of the programs, both our Global MBA and EMBA. Because for example, yesterday we had some sessions really diving deep into the curriculum, the course content, some of the other information. So actually, today's session we're not going to do that, but it's more of a conversation revolving around our alumni speakers, but also perhaps for myself to also share some of the career support that we have for these 2 programs. So for the first segment, let me take you through some slides, information from the school in terms of the various career support services before we move into the conversation with our 2 gentlemen here. Okay, so let me share my screen first. Okay, great. Can everyone see my slides?
Yes.
All good? Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so I'll just take you through some information that I've prepared here, just to give everyone a kind of a flavor of what we offer in terms of the career services team. So for me, primarily from the Asia-Pacific, the Singapore campus, we provide career services, and I'm also looking after the alumni relations team, because in ESSEC we have a very, very strong alumni community, and quite a vibrant one. Now probably the last figure I saw was like 64,000 with across the globe, and various country chapters, lots of activity, and alumni community is very, very important to not just the students, but as the whole community. Okay. For our team here, it's a small team, but collectively, we have some work experience at top universities, and of course, some of us come with industry experience as well. So primarily we offer career coaching, and our role is also to do corporate relationships, to build close partnership with our industry partners, and of course organizing a variety of career-related events, again to facilitate the interaction with the external stakeholders. So yes, we do have, coming with our background, some understanding of the networks in Singapore, the region, and even the broader Asia market across several sectors. So that's some of the key qualities that our team can offer. Now let's look at career services for Gmba. Okay, because for our Gmba cohort, typically the years of working experience around on average, right? I mean, it's below 8 years, for example, right? So for the GMBA students, we do provide a little bit more coverage, which also includes some of the fundamentals as well, because we wanted the support to be more holistic. So you can see here, it's really all encompassing. Right from day one, you will go through a lot of preparatory workshops, counseling as well, one-on-one sessions, interview preparations, company visits, and so on, right? And some of the topics that we cover, are not just the basics, resume, cover letter writing, but from the basics, right? When we share with you one-on-one, that's where we also go deeper into customizing, right, your profile, in particular to apply to a role that you might be interested in or aiming towards. Okay, and of course, personal branding is a very, very important piece, right? Not just I mean, it's for all students. So we do provide personal branding workshops as well, to understand how to properly do networking, especially, for example, in LinkedIn, which is a common, the most used platform. How do you navigate LinkedIn, widen your connections? And of course, there are different strategies. The GMBA, they do internship, because it's a full-time program, right? There are internship component. So we do provide internship strategy, how to search for one, how do you leverage on the resources that are available. And then following that, it will be some interview skills. So we do coach our students how to ace the interview. But I think a lot of times, again, it's really looking at very specific strategies depending on the role and the function. But that's why we cover from the foundation, accumulating into the customized purpose. For the EMBA, the Executive MBA is a different story because I think James can tell you the profiles are very different, right? More than 10 years of work experience. So the situation is, I mean, their needs are quite vastly different versus a younger, someone with younger working experience. So, but we do have other support, other tools to equip our EMBA students, in their journey as well. One of it is Career Leader. Basically, it's a profiling tool that is very helpful to identify your skills, motivator, interests. I mean, there are many, many tools out there, but for EMBA, there is a certain focus on leadership development. Okay, so I think profiling tool is very, very useful, but also how do you decipher the report, right? And how do you make full use of, the results? And again, understanding the market, we have ourselves, the team, and there's also one-to-one coaching. There's also an external executive coach that is available for the EMBA students. So it's a very tailored approach. So just to share with you, I think our team, throughout the year, we organize a lot of activities, definitely, as I mentioned earlier, leveraging on our alumni to, in a way, giving back, right? They come back to share with us their expertise in certain areas and functions. So you can see, I mean, these are just some examples of our past alumni speakers from different sectors. Yeah, the pictures here, good old days, pre-COVID. Obviously, last 2 years, we didn't have much happening. It was all Zoom, I think. But, you can expect more to come now that things are a little less restricted. So in the past, we did have a good variety of company talks. We hosted them here in the Singapore campus. Very good interaction. As well as company visits, not to mention, we do find some interesting places, for our students to visit. That is intentional, and they often get very good and deep conversations, when they go there. And I think the companies themselves are also happy to look at the diversity, right, of our cohort. And of course, a lot of alumni events. Again, this is pre-COVID. The very last one I saw here was our visit to the Asian Civilization Museum. It was quite a fun event. You can see some of the pictures here. So again, we'll be returning, to all these theme-based activities and events. Okay. Okay, great. So I'm done with sharing some of the career support that we provide. So I think now to the main segment. I'm sure all of you, don't just want to hear me. I'm not the focus, but our guest speakers today, I'm sure you can hear a lot. So-called hear from the horse's mouth, right? So today we have James and Jeff. They have done their quick introduction. Okay. So maybe I'll stop sharing and let's have a chat with James and Jeff. So maybe for a start, right? Let me ask the both of you. Maybe first and foremost, right, before you embark on your MBA and MBA journey, how was the thinking process, and actually what made you firstly choose that particular course, which is MBA and EMBA respectively, but also why ESSEC? Yeah, maybe who would like to go first? James?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Leo. So I think I decided to pursue executive education in the middle of the pandemic. So this was 2020. And in full transparency, I was one of those retrenched PMETs in the middle of 2020. And I thought maybe this was the sign, this was the final nudge for me to go and really pursue executive education. I've been thinking about it for years when I was living abroad, but never got around to doing it. So that seemed like the perfect window to do it. And as for why I chose ESSEC, several reasons. So I talked with several of my friends who have done executive education with both foreign universities, with campuses in Singapore, as well as local universities. I was quite sure that I did not want to take an executive program from a local university because my undergraduate was from a local university in Singapore. And so it came down to a couple of choices that are active out here in Singapore. So I think at the end of the day, why I chose ESSEC was the fact that the program was a business program, but also with an emphasis on Asia and Asia relevant topics like negotiating in Asia, and also geopolitics, and also digital transformation, which is huge in our region, and topics like that. I think the other part that really struck out with to me that was a little bit different from the other programs is that the ESSEC EMBA course in Singapore actually has a very, very strong focus on three themes. So sustainability, innovation, and entrepreneurship. And if you decide to take this program on, all the professors will drum this into you. You hear it in every module, and it's part of your kind of the Capstone Project as well. So I thought that was quite interesting, and I've never considered entrepreneurship at until that point in time. And I think through the course you kind of hear a little bit about what that side of the world looks like, and it's fascinating. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks, James. What about Jeff? Take us through the time when you were considering to embark on this MBA journey. What went through your mind, and what were the comparisons and the decision making factors?
Yeah, sure. This was coming at a time where I was about like 8 years into my, career, so to speak. And I think I just realized that the path that I was on had sort of diminishing returns in terms of how far I could get, and also in terms of the exposure that I was going to get. And I really wanted to move myself into a space that was one going to be more innovative. So I couldn't have said it better than James just did in terms of some of ESSEC's strengths, right? But also moving more into the digital marketing space for bigger, more global brands. Because previously I'd been working predominantly with startups and social enterprises and governmental organizations. So the biggest exposure I had previously before MBA was probably the United Nations. But the majority of my portfolio back then was consisted of very small local companies. When it came to deciding whether or not to do the MBA, it really came down to asking myself, well, what is it going to take for me to get to this future version of me that is working with big global companies and also in a very innovative, creative space? Part of it came down to the credentials or the pedigree, and that can be defined by your experience just as much as it could be by your education. Part of it also had to do with location. So making sure that you're in the right vicinity to the right companies was critically important, but then also your connections. If left to my own devices, I could have potentially have pursued this, gotten to where I am today, but I think the route would have been perhaps a bit longer and a bit more roundabout than what ESSEC was able to do for me. So the kinds of decision-making criteria I encountered in my process, I mean, you of course have your pragmatic ones, right? Your more quantitative ones, like, for example, price or how long is the program going to be? Also in terms of accessibility, how far do I have to like relocate myself, for example? These were, of course, the more pragmatic considerations, but there were also more qualitative ones as well. I was a bit selfish and greedy. I wanted to be in a program that I thought could resonate in Asia, but also if I were to have to relocate one day, I wanted to make sure that there was an alumni network that I could potentially tap into if I needed to find work in a new market, for example. It was also important to me that the school that I attended had international or clout, which, in Asia, it can be a little bit hit or miss in terms of which schools are going to be, head turning in a way in certain markets. So it was important to me that there was very much an international presence to the school that I joined. Yeah, and then everything James said as well.
Thanks. How was the experience going through the selection process? Do you still recall how was it?
I can go first on this one. Yeah, I mean, it was grueling. No, just kidding. No, it was actually not as intense as I thought it was going to be. I had applied to probably half a dozen schools, and I found ESSEC to be one of the most human ones, right? Because I think I was first introduced to ESSEC through one of the MBA fairs, and I had a particular set of circumstances that other schools were like, yeah, sorry, you're gonna have to, jump through XYZ hoops to get through it. And then when I was speaking to ESSEC, though, they really took the time to, I guess, understand the circumstances and trying to find ways to accommodate the situation, which I found, it was very influential for me when I was making that decision.
Right. How about James?
I think the application process was relatively straightforward and clear. So I think you have the ESSEC team actually hand-holding you in terms of, at least for the EMBA application process, what are the steps, what are the documentation you need to do. There's several essays you need to write, which is great, right? I think it also forces you to kind of sit down and really think through, okay, why am I in this program? Why am I even applying? Is this program the right one for me, right? So I think it was good to go through that process. Asking for references and things like that, and then going for the panel interviews with the ESSEC faculty. So I think it's pretty straightforward and quite clear. So I don't think that I can comment that there were any hiccups or anything like that. Yeah, it was great.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I would think that it's pretty much like any job interview. it's both parties, right? It's a conversation. And again, definitely the school needs to ascertain your motivation. Have you thought through carefully? This is a real investment. There's a real commitment to be expected, which is why there are certain standard and quality that the school needs to uphold during the journey as well. So I think the requirement for the students, there has to be, of a certain criteria. Right? Okay, thanks for sharing that motivation, thinking about considering the MBA and EMBA courses. Now, probably the next phase, right? Naturally, as you go through the EMBA, of course, one is a part-time curriculum. Of MBA is full-time curriculum. Perhaps you can share with the attendees here how was the journey through the program, and later on I can probably ask you about the career-related kind of questions. Right? So maybe as a start, more of what do you go through, and the kind of experience, both positive and negative, just to share with our audience here. Maybe Jeff can take the lead.
Sure, I can take a stab at this one. So the experience it's for the Gmba, the Global MBA. I remember the very first week we had our trip down to Sumatra. I've forgotten the name of the Hotel Orangutan or something like that.
Yes.
It was really around team building exercises, and then having the opportunity to do design thinking challenges, right? And I don't know if this is a household name for everyone, but Neil Cross was the one who hosted us at his hotel. He's also the Chief Innovation Officer for DBS Bank at the time. So it was an incredible opportunity to just kind of be thrown into the deep end, and then just kind of go running from there. And then I remember the term zero courses, if you will. Actually, I saw a question in the comments as well asking about, the different offerings. Those courses were a sharp wake-up call, though, that I would need to step up my game, because even though I went in with, I think, 8 years of experience, I still had just these crash courses revealed how much I still had to learn, or ingratiate myself into different types of contexts. So, for example, statistics. Worst class I've ever taken, not because it was a particularly bad class, but because I'm just not very statistically minded. And then, but going throughout the year, though, some of my classmates decided to do the term in France. They came back with loads of great stories, and I wish I could have done it with them. But in the meantime, though, a lot of our coursework was centered around design thinking, very hands-on and application-based, which I found great, because I definitely did not want to be in a classroom just talking about theory all day long. And then to cap everything off, we had our Capstone Project, which for us was for BNP Paribas. And that was also a great opportunity. Our team didn't end up winning the pitch competition, but we were invited to present to their C-suite, because the concept that we had brought to the table was so in line with their team's thinking and vision that they were quite excited to have us continue that conversation. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do it because we were also rigorously applying for jobs at the time, but it would have been a great opportunity.
Okay.
That's a whole lot of word vomit, so I'll stop there. Yeah.
So Jeff, maybe riding on your sharing of the MBA experience, how about in terms of your encounter in terms of career support? I think I flashed some of those activities from the slides. Maybe you could share how you tapped on these interaction, as well as maybe your personal experience from career services team.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I think what surprised me is it's a very holistic approach, right? Because it's not just like sit you down and with your resume and like nail out how to best format your resume. There are of course those sessions, and making sure that your resume is tailored for whatever market you're trying to get into. But there's also more, I guess, human-centric approaches where we had people come in and focus on things like, how do you pitch yourself in 30 seconds? More about your public speaking. It was also about your executive presence. things that would those sort of intangible qualities that you bring to an interview, for example, or the personality that you inject into your cover letter. And a lot of these things are not easy to learn from like a YouTube video or even from your peers. It really helps to have a more hands-on approach. So
true. Yeah. I mean, well, you can learn about the theory. Right? I think it's practice.
Yeah.
So sometimes we do organize workshops where, I mean, there has to be an element of practical, for you to appreciate.
And to have that direct feedback as well was I think really rewarding. Yeah.
Someone to really point out, your areas of improvement, because something that you can't really do it online, totally, right? So, okay. How about your interactions with not just companies, maybe with the alumni during those few years?
Yeah.
Were you able to?
Was this to me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, James. So my interaction with alumni. I have to say the alumni network has definitely been growing over the past few years. So when I joined, ESSEC was still an emerging presence in Singapore, and I don't think that's unfair to say, right? But even back then, though, there was a staunch group of supporters who would be there at all the events, making sure. I remember we were also matched with mentors at that time.
Yes.
So people who'd been through the program and also were embedded here in Singapore, who were quite happy to, again, be another sounding board. If you were like, you know what, call me crazy, I think I have a different vision for my career than the one I had when I first started as ESSEC, and they can kind of help you organize your thoughts. Or maybe in one case, one of the alumni was like, you know what, I know someone who's working in an industry very close to the one that you want to get into. Why don't I put you guys in touch? So, yeah.
Sounds good. Okay, over to James. Maybe James, you can share with us your experience, during the EMBA journey, and snippets of kind of career conversations, and also the kind of interactions that you had.
Sure. So with the EMBA class, our median age was 38. So I'm above the median age when I started the course. It's a small cohort due to COVID, and I think probably a little bit different from Jeff's experience because of the profile of the participants. We expected, and we did learn as much from each other as from our professors. Because I think it's absolutely fascinating, at least from my perspective, to look at one business problem and have the lenses of maybe 7 or 8 different industries giving you a response. And some of the interesting discussions, most interesting discussions, come from having a topic where in the same class on the same topic, you might have 2 opposing views because they are coming at it from 2 different industries that view the problem differently, right? So I think that's the richness of the conversation that we benefit from based on the profile of the participants and the classmates that you have. So I think that was very, very interesting for me. I think it also helps that we had maybe quite a good mix of demographic representation. So only 4 Singaporeans in our cohort, and the rest are from all over the world, from the UK, from Turkey, from Germany, from France, and basically we could kind of give each other a different perspective about an issue, or even about what they have observed in Singapore, living and working here, and how that's different from Europe, or how that's different from America, and all that. So I think there's an intent behind how ESSEC chooses classmates and participants, and I think that can make or break your experience. So I think, thankfully, for my cohort, the experience was a great one, and it carried us through the 15 months. In terms of the experience, that was also a highlight would probably be a couple of things. One is the sustainability project. So we had to do a 15-month sustainability project, which at least for my team, none of us have done a project where we had to start a company and research a topic where none of us are a subject matter expert, right? So I think that was the fun part. I think ESSEC really pushes you into out of your comfort zone to kind of like figure out, okay, how can we deliver this assignment for this module that ends in 3 days when we know nothing from day one, right? So I think it's kind of getting to the mindset of focusing on the issue, and then coming up with a storyline that you can agree with within the team in terms of applying what you've learned in the 3 days onto the assignment. And then for the final project is really applying all of what you've learned in the 15 months onto the project, and then finding a relevance for that. So our project, just to digress a little bit, was on the subject of black soldier flies for reducing food waste. And we applied this project in 2 countries, in Singapore and the Philippines. So 2 of my classmates are from the Philippines. And we actually managed to build a small farm, an insect farm in the Philippines as a result of the project, and started to kind of find customers and find suppliers and figure out all the operations and all that. So it was very, very interesting to have an opportunity to do that on the program, right? I mean, we only do this as a part-time student, but the weeks that we're not attending, as we are also fully invested in this project while the project was going on, and even after, right? So I think that was overall a great experience. I think the other point I wanted to mention probably is the residencies that we've just completed for our cohort. Because of COVID, the residencies were delayed from last year. So we did both this year, just in March and in April. So March was with Mannheim Business School in Germany, and then April was with Georgetown University in the US over here. So I think both were excellent experiences. For the German one, we actually got exposed to German family-owned businesses, which is and how they work and how they think and how they form the backbone of German industry. I think for most of us in Singapore, unless you work for a German company, you may not know about these things. And so it was a good exposure to that, and also to hear from their perspective about Asia and how they do business out in China and Singapore and some of the other locations. With the so it's very business oriented, and they also talk about Germany in innovation. We talk about electric cars. Why are electric cars not invented by German automakers? So that's a philosophical question that got discussed in class. And and then for the US one, we were fortunate to come to Washington, DC, and interact with the cohort that was having their EMBA in Paris. And so it's a big class of 60 people. May I also say without mask for the first time in over 2 years in the same lecture theater. So that was a great experience to hear from our cohort mates in the other campus about their experience on the ESSEC program, and also just exchanging views about different topics. We also had a group assignment we had to make, and also to hear from the American speakers. I think the speakers that Georgetown chose for the residency tended to be more a mix of business as well as political kind of speakers. So an introduction to policy making and how business benefits or leverages public policy making here in the United States, which is of course a very different view from coming from Asia, right? So I think overall it was a very enriching experience. And I think the highlight, of course, is also that at the end of the classes and the assignments, we get to hang out and network and get to know each other, what each other is up to from different parts of the world, right? So networking sessions, dinners, and all that, those are also quite essential part of the EMBA experience. Yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds good. James, I think I recall you mentioning about having, in terms of career conversations, right, during the EMBA journey. Maybe you'd like to share that, and also how did it lead you, to your current role?
Yeah, sure. So out of my EMBA cohort, I'm the only one who didn't have a job, and I started the course. So everyone else in my class was already with an employer, or they are already business owners. And so basically, I was the only one who went to look for career services. at ESSEC, and basically there was some very interesting advice, particularly for myself. One of the advice that was a revelation for me was that my next job was not going to come from me sending thousands of resumes through LinkedIn, right? So that was a revelation for me because I have been doing that, since there was LinkedIn, right? So, and basically that I should be thinking more about, having a personal branding on LinkedIn and online, and really exposing to within the network on topics that I'm passionate about, and then talking to people on the network about those topics. And then also, of course, putting myself in front of the executive search firms, not so much the recruitment firms, and also reaching out to people in the network who work with prospective employers that I'm interested in, right? So I think those were very good advice. We also had the benefit of a career coach that was assigned to us, each of us, one-to-one, maybe for about 6 months. And then basically we walk through some of the things like where our personal blind spots, there is, to Leo's point, there is a strong emphasis on the leadership component. So how are we as, what's our leadership style, right, at work and all that? What do we prefer? And what are some of our blind spots, and what is the development plan that we can build to address those blind spots and development areas? So that was great. And then basically, in terms of my current role, it was through LinkedIn. I started the course maybe about 3 months into it, and my current employer reached out to me on LinkedIn and asked me if I was still looking for a job. I said yes, but I'm also doing my MBA part-time, right? So, and then they were very accommodating and said that it's fine, come and join us, and we'll work something out. So that was great. And I think perhaps one part of it that they were looking out for was that I was attending my MBA course with a French business school. And in my current company, there's a very strong French roots with a lot of French-speaking colleagues, both out here in Singapore as well as in the region, and of course in our headquarters in Switzerland as well. Yeah, so I think those are some of the points I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I was about to talk about, there is some help in the brand, although, ESSEC in this region, we are still, there's still a lot of room, to grow in terms of awareness of the brand. But I think given our strong alumni community, you literally can find, your seniors, everywhere. Located at various parts of the world. So that is something unique for a lot of business schools, having that strong network, so enlarging the whole community and having that kind of to and fro interaction, conversations, and of course, opportunities. Okay, great. Thanks for taking us through the journey, what you've gone through. And probably for the next segment, perhaps I would like to ask is now it's a bit of retrospect, right? It's a bit of retrospect for the both of you. Of course, for James, it's the residencies are delayed, but in a sense, he has officially graduated, right? But for Jeff, of course, it was some time back, and now after having gone through the MBA and EMBA program, and then you basically continue in terms of your career journey, what were some of the areas that you felt helped you, right, post graduation, or perhaps certain points or factors that make improvement, in terms of your personal development? Yeah, I hope my question is not too long. Maybe Jeff, you can start with your sharing.
Sure. First, I'd like to apologize for the 3-kilogram elephant in the room, which is my dog. He's got severe separation anxiety. So yeah, when we talk about, what is the long-term impact of the MBA on my journey so far, I think one of the most immediately relevant things that comes to mind for me is my job as a strategy lead for accounts like like Google and Amazon and PayPal and a lot of these like global brands is you can't really tether yourself to a specific mindset because the kind of business challenge that you face from client to client, or even within the same clients from department to department, can change quite dramatically. And so I think one of the most lasting impacts from the MBA was kind of equipping myself with a toolkit of different frameworks or approaches to help you frame challenges that oftentimes are quite unclearly or poorly defined, right? And helping you get to the root of the problem, right? Especially, I think design thinking was a very critical tool within this set that was provided to me by ESSEC. And then some of the intangible value as well. You can, especially if you're trying to pivot into a different industry than the one that you have been in so far, ESSEC kind of will help you give you that confidence to have those conversations with people, despite not having all of the context or having all of the grounding that or expertise, I should say. And I found that very valuable because when I wanted to get into the world that I'm in today, it wasn't necessarily easy for me. I needed to learn a lot of lingo. I needed to understand a lot of context very, very quickly. And these were things, like I said, if I had to navigate it on my own, sure, probably could have happened. But ESSEC was a very intense dose of this throughout the course of the MBA. And so it's very natural to, sure, make mistakes, but you're doing it in a relatively safe environment for you to learn and grow from those, and then develop your own style for kind of embracing a different world from the one that you've been raised in professionally. I don't know if that's the most articulate way for me to really describe all that, but I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the new problem-solving kind of framework that you're equipped with, right? I know post graduation, and of course, I'm sure it affects your personal development. Having been exposed to the kind of diversity, the multicultural.
Actually, I don't want to cannibalize but I did see a question here that was posted on social media that was asking whether or not the MBA or EMBA experience would be useful for a consulting career or a career in the tech industry. And honestly, the best skill set that you can take away from the Gmba is, again, it boils down to that problem solving and the ability to be adaptable and understand business challenges, as well as what the different audiences or stakeholders need from you in that situation. And that's a skill that I think is relevant for whether you want to go into tech or consulting or whatever.
I think we can come back to that question later on as well. Maybe over to James. So far, although it has been rather short, right? Not that long, but perhaps how did it affect your work, your personal development post graduation?
Sure. So I would say probably what's interesting is that a lot of the companies that we study during the EMBA course, the business cases, and things like that, were actually diving very deep into business issues. Could be sustainability, could be digital transformation, or could be just a regular business process that wasn't working, and how that particular company had solved it, or was at the tip of trying to make a decision that can have huge financial and other impact, right, on the organization. I think I actually work in human resources right now, and we serve clients from many verticals. And I think it was quite encouraging for me when some of these business challenges kind of presented themselves again at work, because it's the same client that we learned about, and it's actually one of our clients at work as well, right? So, and then it's like, oh, I actually know what you guys are struggling with, right? So then on a very direct way, it kind of helps you build rapport with the client, because you understand what they're going through. And I think the other part is also to just point earlier, as they really, you know, at ESSEC, they really pump you with different business cases that you have to go through very quickly, understand what the core issues are. It helps you develop this, I guess, a practice of looking at a business and then figuring out what is actually wrong with the business, what are the levers that you have that you can change. And then I think those skills you can probably apply in many situations, be it internal or external, when you're advising your client or be it internally. I think one of the other directly relevant topics for myself is digital transformation. So I think we covered that in the course, but I think right now, most of our clients where I'm from now are also undergoing this. It's I think in this audience, it's safe to say it's not a painless process for the clients, and I think it helps to have those toolkits with you, and also be able to talk about that process with your clients in a very credible way. My own company is undergoing a transformation as well, not just digitally. You know, so I think it's also been very helpful to be able to talk with my peers, the other department heads in the company, about what are some of the experiences of other you know, organizations that have had to undergo a transformation. And what are some of the watch outs and, you know, things like that. So I think it has probably invigorated the strategic conversations at work a lot after the course, for sure. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. I'm mindful of the time, so maybe now let's we can look at the Q&A and probably answer some of the questions posted by our attendees. Okay. There's one question of there's a question posed whereby if whether the EMBAs can also participate in the GMBA, career service offerings, because obviously I mentioned just now for the GMBA is a lot more holistic and looking at the basics. I would say there's definitely a difference, right? Because EMBA firstly is a part-time endeavor, right? GMBA, you do have a full-time. There's a lot of runway available, which is why the career services team, we have the windows to inject a lot of these career services programs. That's why you find it a lot more holistic. But for the EMBA, the approach, I find it's similar. It's similar across many business schools. Yeah, because given the fact that it's part time, most of the students like James, right? Most of them have other commitments. So we are approaching it from a more bespoke manner, right? That's why in a way there is a distinction, right? But having said that, at least within the school, we're open to the EMBAs joining some other programs. It may not necessarily be the career workshops itself, but sometimes when we have even career fairs, or some other smaller scale kind of events, we're open. We're open, because, like I said, it's a matter of whether you have the time to attend all these events. Right? So I hope that answers the question. Okay, the next one, let me see. Switching job industries. The question is, did you switch job industries? And if so, how did the programs help? Probably we have covered, a bit of it. Maybe anyone would like to elaborate a bit more?
I can just maybe add my 2 cents worth over here. So I did switch industries, in the sense that it's functionally it's a different discipline now. So before that, I was working in education, so selling to institutions and all that, education solutions. And now I'm in human resource industry. And you could say there are some transferable skills and all that in terms of the functional domain knowledge. But by and large, I had to learn a new industry. And I think what we talked about earlier just now is applicable. So what you learn on the course helps you to analyze any industry that you are dealing with, be it as, you could be consulting for a client, or be it your own company, right? So I think there are several courses that that actually helped with that. So the strategy course, the leadership course, as well as the innovation course. I think those are probably the classes that specifically can help you to kind of, with some frameworks that you can use to really think about the prospective industry that you're going into. And then, at the initial stage, it could be helping you to prepare for an interview better. And then once you start, it kind of gives you the tools to analyze your own business as well, as you step into the organization. So I think that does help with shortening the learning curve a little bit. I would say for me, maybe the part that didn't change even though I changed industry, was that I've always been in business development, sales, marketing, customer-facing roles. So those skills are carrying through from my previous organizations into my new one. So I think that part is probably the same, but really it's updating your analytical framework on the course, so that you have more tools at your disposal as you enter the new industry or the new role. Yeah.
Thanks for that. Jeff, anything to add? Because you mentioned just now that you did have an aim, for going through the MBA and getting into the bigger companies. What else how else did the program facilitated that?
I think James really hit it on the head when he talks about the kinds of exposure that you get from the program, right? Because the kinds of case studies and business challenges that we're presented with do represent a pretty fair range of industries and also business challenges. So I think one of the things that helped me understand or make my industry hopping a bit more easy to manage was the understanding that fundamentally business problems don't tend to actually be too drastically different across industries, right? They get dressed up in different use cases, for example, but a lot of times the underlying problems that they face boil down to a lot of times it's the human factor, right? When we talk about digital transformation, it's not always going to be about technical competence so much as the culture around the tools and the technologies that you want to implement and how you integrate those into the workflows, for example. So it's a much more human conversation. And I think when you apply that thinking to a bunch of different industries, you start to recognize patterns. So as I was saying before, right? I go into a conversation with someone who I'm interested in their industry, but I know nothing about it. As they start to talk to me about, I'll ask them like, well, what are the 3 biggest headaches that you face in a given week, for example? And they start talking about it. I can already kind of start tapping into this pool of case studies and sort of just like common denominator human knowledge that I've gained from like the coursework to say, you know what, I think I know what you're talking about. And then we can have a much more personable conversation with this individual. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Not much time left actually. So maybe what I'll do is final questions for our guest speakers here. Probably in terms of giving advice. Now looking back, giving advice to some potential students. How to what advice can you provide to maximize the experience and maybe even the kind of career support that you want to tap on more. Yeah. James?
Okay, sure. I'll give it a go. So I think my advice for prospective EMBA candidates is really you have to bring your A game to class, because your classmates are looking to you for their learning experience as well. So you can't just be a kind of like a silent participant. And I think for our cohort it worked out. So everyone kind of knew that was the bargain, and everyone really contributed. You see hands raised all the time, and you see debates happening all the time, and then and then you start to recognize patterns. So this is what our French classmates like to talk about, and these are what the Singaporeans like to talk about usually. And I think that's that would be one advice to maximize the experience. I think the second advice I would give is probably that at the EMBA level, you are probably on the way to preparing yourself to either C-suite or C-suite -1, in the big corporation. So in that sense, you need to own your own career development. You need to be the one proactively reaching out, networking with people that you think would be relevant to you in terms of your career moves and all that, and seeking advice and then talking to mentors and things like that. And it's no longer like when you're a fresh graduate from school, and basically you have a manager that's kind of helping you, maybe a little bit guiding your career. You are fully responsible for what happens next, right? So I think that's the advice I want to give. Yeah.
Thanks, Jim. Jeff? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I'll try to keep this short and snappy. I think my advice boils down to really two key points. The first one is that you really need to be ready to be challenged. And by that, I mean, it could be challenging your skills or what you think is your expertise. It could also be challenging your comfort zones. But I think in the case of myself and a couple of my classmates as well, even challenge the notion of what you expect to get out from the MBA, because I know a lot of my classmates ended up pivoting or course correcting once they were exposed to different things. They were like, actually, you know what, maybe I should be exploring something in supply chain rather than marketing, for example. And I think riding off of the tails of that, though, is be ready to change your perspective as well. Because if you walk out of the MBA with everything intact, or you're exactly the same person as when you entered, you missed kind of the point of the MBA, I think. So there's a bit of flexibility involved or embedded into that in terms of how you get the most out of the experience.
Right. Great. Okay, thanks, James and Jeff, so much for your sharing today. For myself, maybe just some final quick comments. Although today really the topic is making the most out of MBA career services, but my comment is that we are here to support. So the answer lies in the individual, right? How you approach the program. What do you want to do? What problems you want to solve? What do you want to learn? The resources are all here. We are all ready to support your journey. So it's a matter of your individual motivation. How proactive are you? There's this question that I saw, how does the school work with alumni in terms of career? Again, we do a lot of things with the alumni, creating opportunities, interaction. Some alumni also are interested to basically hire their juniors, given the reputation and the experience. So a lot of things are there for your taking. Again, it goes back to the individual. What do you really want? And that also, in a way, addresses when people ask about, hey, what's the ROI? Besides the tangible part of the ROI, the intangible part, again, it's very individual, right? It's very individual. But I think, as what our two guests has mentioned earlier, I think it's important to know what you're going for, and even better still, you have a kind of direction that you're heading towards, so that as you go through the MBA or EMBA journey, you are purposeful, in your undertaking, or certain topics that you are engaged in, what you're interested and also keeping an open mind to learn about many other things which all of us won't know. But that's the idea, right? Going through that kind of experience and for your personal development plus knowledge. Okay. So with that, I thank all of, again, thanks to James and Jeff. I thank all of the attendees here today. I hope it's good sharing, hearing from the participants, hearing from our alumni themselves, the journey and the takeaways. So feel free to get in touch with us for our EMBA, the MBA, our colleagues. If you have any questions, just feel free to contact us. You can also find myself and my colleagues in LinkedIn. So we're happy to answer some of the questions that might not have been that we might not have time to address today. Okay, so thank you so much. Let's end the webinar today. Okay, so thank you all. Take care and
Thank you.
take care.
Bye.
Thanks.
All right, bye bye everyone.